So I'm still here out in LA making real progress with this beautiful Mercedes 190 SL. Now in the last episode we managed to get it to Bob's Big Boy Diner's Friday night classic car meet, where it turned a few heads and attracted some real interest. So just to recap, amongst other things, in the last episode I sorted the window washers, tuned the carburetors, recolonised that dirty worn out interior, a few finishing touches to the rear brakes, complete and refit that front bumper and replace those worn out seals. And although the car cleaned up really well, and as successful as the visit to the show was, and as nice as the car drove, I just didn't seem happy with that steering, which in my mind seemed wallowy and vague. So with just a couple of days left, and my conscience telling me I just had to put this right, with the clock ticking away, with just one thing left to do. Let's get stuck in. You can see here the nuts and split pins securing them are at the top, and with all the grease and gunk covering them, it's hard to even see where they are. I mean, look at all the filth along here. So before I do anything, it's time for a clear off. And because these are inaccessible, I decided to go in from the top. Now the first one was easy, because I'd managed to get the split pin out. But because I couldn't even get to the others, I've decided to use this method, which is to knock the socket on with a hammer past the split pin, and then the nut just undoes easily. And because this hammer isn't quite heavy enough, I'm literally hammering for hours before I can get any movement. I found the best way to get them off was to attach a 4-foot bar on the end of the knuckle breaker and then just put my whole weight on it till it snapped out. And because these had been on for 67 years or so, some of them just didn't want to budge. But eventually, and thankfully, they all came out. And before I fit the new ones, I'm just going to try and get the new rods exactly the same length as the old ones have taken off, just so the steering isn't too far out before I get the tracking done. So we're halfway there. Okay guys, I've just had to get cleaned up there to feel a little bit better. I just wanted to talk you through these drop links, or track rod ends as we call them in the UK. As you can see, these are so worn out. I mean, look at that. I mean, they're awful. They're totally dry inside. I reckon these are the original ones the car came out the factory with. I mean, look at these grease nipples here. On the new ones, which are picked up from the Mercedes-Benz centre, they don't even have grease nipples on them. So they're just pre-lubricated and they'll last for years. And they're adjustable as well on the end, whereas these seem like, I mean, as you can see, these are fixed, like a fixed length. This is the drag link. This acts like a shock absorber, and what this does, when you turn your steering wheel, it brings it back to the centre position. If you take your hands off it, it'll just go back to the centre position like that. So they're quite crucial, these, but even when they get worn, you just get used to turning the wheel yourself. So as you can see, these are completely and utterly shot. I mean, look at that, there's not even any movement in that. That's all right, but that's totally seized up, you know. And this one, you look at this, the longer ones are adjustable at the end, so you undo these. Pretty prehistoric looking at them now. I mean, look at the difference in the new ones. Pretty simple, nice clean thread. This has like got a double nut on the end with like a lock and lap over thing there. These have got to be the original ones from when the car was new. See the grease nipple, non-existent on the new ones, but yeah, state of that. Saved me cleaning them up as well. I'm sure the car will drive an awful lot better with these fitted. It'll tighten everything up and it'll be less vague and wallowy. So, and if it's still a little bit vague, then it's got to be the steering box, and we can do that next. But for the time being, as you can see, I've got my hands full. So let's crack on. after hours and hours of shifting years and years of sticky grease and filth, I can eventually start to see where I am and what's what. So I'm off to the Mercedes-Benz Classic Centre in Long Beach because the one part I forgot to order was that steering gear shock absorber, and I'd be ashamed to put one old part back in amongst a whole set of brand new parts. So it's a 3-hour round trip, but it's always worth it when you get to see cars like this. Look at that. Imagine having a garage like that to work in. All the space you want, spotlessly clean, all the tools you want, the lifts. Paradise. Roy Orbison's car, a 600 limousine. Wow. Absolutely beautiful. With the factory bare aircon system as well. Has it got soft closing doors? I think they did away with them in 67, 68. There's another one, same colour as the one I owned in that brownie grey, that incidentally belonged to Pick Boater. You know, what amazes me about this place is their attention to detail. I mean, just look at that. Okay, people are probably paying, what, 200,000 or 300,000 for a full restoration here, but, you know, if you had the money, this is the place to bring it. And just look at this stunning 300 SEL with the 6.3 engine in. Same as the 600. Wow, what a stunner. Oh well, thanks Eddie. Thanks for the guided tour, mate. And it's back to reality. Okay, so I've just got back from the Classic Centre. Just take a look at this. You see this here? This is kind of like a shock absorber for the steering components. I've also purchased a couple of springs there for the handbrake on the shoes, you know, the handbrake return spring, because they can become a little bit weak. And I've got a little bit of drag on the left rear wheel, driver's side wheel. I mean, it's not quite binding, but it's just something of concern. So I'll have to keep an eye on that and try and get to the bottom of what's making it drag. So that's basically this. And that just kind of takes a little bit of the, you know, the wallowiness and a little bit of the, I wouldn't say the vagueness because the track rod ends do that. I'd say just kind of, it's like a buffer. It's like it makes it more comfortable and smoother in action. Just like a shock absorber, as I said. So yeah, let's get this on, and that's all the steering components, well, for now, complete. Yeah, okay. But it seems that journey was all in vain, because when I tried to put it on, yeah, you guessed it, it was the wrong part, because both ends are not exactly the same, and on this new one they are. So it's back to the old one, clean it up and put it back on till I get the chance to source another one, because the Mercedes Classic Centre said this is the only one that's available. Hey ho, it'll do for now. Top the manual gearbox up with ATF oil. So with that done, I think it's time to give this car a proper test drive, don't you? And as I cruise down the avenue of stars, it seems like what started off as a nightmare has turned into a lovely dream. So away we go. Now, apart from the steering, just take a look at this. Okay, I've just done all the steering rods and that, so, you know, that's understandable. I'll take it into a place and I'll get it tracked in properly. And that'll just straighten up, no problem. Terrible roads around here. It's almost a shame to drive a car on these roads. I mean, it's just pothole city. But yeah, it's nice and responsive. The gears are lovely. Bit of stop sign, nearly went through. The gears feel lovely. The brakes feel nice and responsive. Yeah, it's nice and pokey, yeah. Plenty of poke for a 4-cylinder. I just wish it was on a nicer road, like an English country road. Because this is like, you feel like the axle is going to fall off every time you hit a bump. But what a day. This is the weather for the car like this, isn't it? Going down Beechwood Drive by the Hollywood sign. What dreams are made of, isn't it? Shattered dreams. But speaking of shattered dreams, it didn't quite have the happy ending I expected. Because when I arrived back at Dan's, what do you know? I lost reverse gear. But luckily, I knew what it was. Because many years ago when I restored my 230SL Pagoda, I had exactly the same problem. These nylon bushes are shaped like a top hat. See this broken piece I found underneath the car? And what happens is, over 60 years or so, they just kind of dry up like dry grease and just crumble away. Your gear stick becomes really sloppy to the point where you're no longer able to select gears. So I'm going to have to think on my feet here, because it's 4 in the morning and I'm flying out tonight. I've no time to order parts, and the car being booked in for its wheel alignment, I'm going to have to use what I've got. These'll do. Panic off. Genius. And it's too early to have any machines on, so good old elbow grease. That should be enough to get me into gear. So if you look here, you see that's basically a temporary fix. It was a tricky one because I couldn't really do anything. It was 4 o'clock in the morning, it was on my mind, I was tossing and turning, so I got up and I decided to use my brain and kind of think of an idea and a way I could just firm it all up, because the problem is when you smack this to the left and forward, that's reverse. And because these were worn out here, it was too sloppy and it wasn't getting purchased on the rod to select the gear. So as usual, I've used a little bit of improvisation, and that sorted the problem for now. But I'm going to have to order the proper nylon bushes from Mercedes-Benz. There's also one here as well, at the base of the gear stick. So once I've done that and that, it should, sort the problem. You can see how it's firmed up already, but it definitely needs the one down here as well. But for now, it'll get me into reverse, it'll get me down to the tracking centre, and fingers crossed I won't have any more problems. So let's get this back together again, shall we? So just when I thought it was going to be finished, it looks like I'm coming back, because this restoration's just taken on a whole new turn. Excuse the pun. Thank you for watching this episode of Classic Obsession. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and subscribe. And see you all next time.